Hey everyone, Willie Clark here. This week we've got a special video preview of a certain foul-mouthed game coming out on October 17th. South Park, The Fractured Butthole. Ubisoft provided me with some B-roll. I got to check out the game yesterday at an event in San Francisco. And for more, you can check out my full written preview that'll be up on ZAM tomorrow. And I will add a link into this video once that is up. But yeah, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about a little bit about my background with South Park. I think that's important. I'm a longtime South Park fan, and I do think I have very high expectations for Matt and Trey and company, and I don't know if those are necessarily unwarranted, because when they succeed, we get things like the South Park movie. I mean, the show itself, when it's on its A game. And the Book of Mormon, they are capable of creating some of the funniest things possible in many different mediums. I think and hope that they are bringing that with South Park Fractured Butthole. However, after playing for about 3 hours of the game, I'm worried and not entirely sure that they are. Let's dig into it. First, some of the new things. For those of you who played the last South Park game, The Stick of Truth, you'll know that it was a turn-based RPG, very much in the style of games like Paper Mario. Fractured Butthole, however, is going in a different direction and is now having tactical-based gameplay. Think Advanced Wars, but on a, or Mario and Rabbids, but on a much smaller scale. Things are on a grid, and you can move your characters around to different positioning. Different attacks have different, areas of effect and ranges that they can hit, stuff like that. However, after playing the game for a few hours, I'm not quite convinced or sure of what type of depth there is going to be in the gameplay. This was one of the issues I actually had with Stick of Truth, where Stick of Truth was funny, but I'm not sure it was the best game. The RPG elements weren't super great, and I was hopeful and excited about them changing to a new tactical-based gameplay system. I'm just not entirely sure that this is going to be the right answer. It is a change in some form. I'm just not sure yet if it is the right change. That's something we're not going to find out probably until the game actually releases. Story-wise, there are a lot of things I'm still not allowed to talk about yet that I got to play, but I also have some concerns here as well. We've seen the story for over a year at this point, and they've kind of made some changes that kind of make things seem like two different stories mushed together. There was the initial story and premise that they've been showing in previews, and then some new stuff that they've been showing but some stuff that's in the actual game that just doesn't seem to fit with what we saw initially, and some of the scenes and stuff just don't make a whole lot of sense now, given the story being as it is. And that's something to be concerned about in a South Park game. That being said, the game is funny. I laughed, and there are a lot of funny bits. I got to do everything from summon Moses with the macaroni pitcher to fight Catholic priests, which, you're going to see in this video, some of what that was all about. But there is funny stuff here. There is there are a lot of jokes. There's one joke that in particular has been getting a lot of attention. During the character creation, it gives you a bunch of regular, normal character creation things. What do you want your facial hair, your regular hair to look like, stuff like that. And then it says, okay, pick your difficulty, and it gives you a skin color selection slider. I thought this was one of the best jokes that South Park did in, the 3 hours that I got to play it. It's also an example of a joke that they could only do in a video game. And that's one of the things that I really want to see in Fractured Butthole, is them taking advantage of games as a medium and delivering jokes that aren't just something that they could do in the TV show. And, that was an example of one, but what other meta things can they do? What other boundaries and barriers can they break that could only be done in a video game? My fear for the Fractured Butthole is that it may end up becoming a very long episode of the TV show with some combat thrown in. And that's definitely something that I felt getting to play the game now too, that I don't remember feeling with the last game, is the battles almost felt like stepping stones kind of in between the story. Like you were playing the story, you were exploring, and then you'd get to a battle. and you'd win the battle and then kind of move on. It didn't feel like the battles were, were really part of the experience, and so I'm concerned to see what the balance is going to be like in the final game between the amount of time you're in battles and the amount of time you're doing other stuff. On that note, one of the other new features is artifacts, and you can equip artifacts, and they give you a might level, and, it kind of seems like this might be them giving the players the might they need to reach certain fights, like exactly at the exact time that they're supposed to reach these fights. What that's going to look like over the course of the whole game, we don't know yet, and, that's the problem with seeing just a snippet of the game this early in, is it doesn't give any case. It doesn't really show what hour 10 or 15, if the game stretches on that long, might look like. There's a lot of other stuff you can do in the game too. One bit that I particularly actually thought was dumb at first but really enjoyed was you're going around getting Instagram photos on your and taking selfies with people to get followers on Instagram, which was funny. They've also introduced crafting into this game, which is explained quite well by Morgan Freeman, who's for some reason now running a taco stand. The one thing with crafting, though, is they've kind of changed the item system from the first game, which I think is a bit of a bummer, is in the first game, if you remember, you had a lot of junk you collected that was useless junk, but they were all references to South Park. You could pick up an item and then go into your menu and see flavor text describing what the item was with jokes and stuff like that. That has now been taken away from the Fractured Butthole. All of the items are essentially relegated into a few component sections. So once you get an item and then go into your menu, it is then put into one of a few component sections instead of actually having that flavor text and being a unique item. What this also means is that it seemed that a lot of the items, and I get most South Park references, but it seemed that a lot of the items were more generic, weren't necessarily references to the show, which is also kind of disappointing. That being said, overall, I do still think that South Park is good. I like it, I enjoyed it, I just have some concerns, and we will have to see how those are addressed when the game launches October 17th. Until then, keep an eye on my channel, like, share, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys for coming back this week. Until next week, see y'all later.